Hi, everyone. So today is Sunday, April 20th, 2025. We continue on talking on the platform Sutra, the chapter of the doubt. So last time, we ended at the way of the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva does not act for self-interest. The Bodhisattva responds to the needs of sentient beings, offering help at the right time and in the right place, without selfish motivation. The Bodhisattva exists for others, adapting to situations to provide appropriate guidance and support, always seeking to benefit sentient beings. So that is where we end. Now let's go to the translation. But if you do not cultivate, how can you go there? On hearing this speech, the members of the great assembly clearly saw their own nature. They bowed together and exclaimed, "This is indeed good and may all living beings of the Dharma realm who have heard this awaken at once and understand." So previously we talked about illuminating the self-nature and achieving inner outer clarity. Now, if we don't cultivate in this way, how can we reach that place? Now, that place referring to awakening, liberation, or even attaining Buddhahood. So when the audience was listening to Master Huineng's teaching from the platform Sutra, after hearing those lines, many experienced sudden awakening, feeling deeply moved and grateful. They bowed to Master Huineng and praised him. What a rare and precious teaching. They expressed their wish. If only all beings could hear such teachings and attain awakening too. So that means there were quite a few people listening. And you have all heard the two phrases, illuminating the self-nature and inner and outer clarity. So the question here is that how many of us have experienced awakening? You might be feeling a little disappointed, thinking, I seem to understand, but I'm not sure. How do I truly awaken? Well, in reality, awakening can be both difficult and easy. Why is it difficult? Because when you awaken, all vexations or afflictions disappear, and you experience true liberation. Then easy is because awakening can be something as simple as gaining a new understanding, a moment of insight. So, for example, after hearing explanation, you might now understand something you did not before. That's also a form of awakening. Previously, you hadn't heard it. Now you have. This is not complete enlightenment, of course, but it's still a step towards understanding. So, if asking you again, have you awakened? Well, some of you are nodding your heads, but cautiously. Let's give an example. If there is a horse, ride the horse. If there's no horse, walk. So, do you understand this? This means there is no absolutely necessity, no absolute necessity, no must do or must avoid. There's nothing that absolutely has to be done or must not be done. If something needs to be done and you can do it, then do it. So if you have understood this, you have understood something. It may not be fully enlightenment, but it's a good start. One of the key teachings in Chan is to face reality and deal with it rationally. Someone once asked, why do people say a monk can sit with a king as an equal, yet also walk alongside beggars? So our teacher replied, because the king is at the highest level and the beggar is at the lowest level. A monk has no fixed status. He is neither high nor low. Therefore, he can engage with both without conflict. And a teacher sharing something like this. A publishing company released a book about 12 prominent people in Taiwan. So ministers, legislators, and other well-known figures. Now, among the 12, there was one monk, which is our teacher. So guess where they place our teacher? They put our teacher at the very top of the list. And our teacher asked the author, how come you put Sheng Yan before a government minister? The author explained, these other individuals all have high ranks. We couldn't decide who should go first. So we put you at the top to avoid conflict. So that is how our teacher ended up at the top. Not because of his rank, but because he had no rank. Ironically, having no rank gave our teacher the highest position. The message here is that don't chase after status or cling to rank. Not having a rank is the highest rank of all. So, for practitioners, do you want to learn how to have no rank? If you have a certain rank or position, then fulfill the role to the best of your ability. If you lose the rank or step down, don't be upset. Rank and status are temporary and illusory. So, for example, when they put our teacher at the top of the list, he would not think, oh, I'm more important than a minister. Now, if our teacher has started boasting about it, I outrank government officials, then the next time they would place a teacher at the bottom of the list. Or maybe not include me, not include our teacher at all. So remember this simple lesson. If you have an ox, use the ox. If you don't have an ox, use a horse. If there's no horse, use a dog. This is practical wisdom. Adapt to what's available and let go of rigid expectations. So keep this in mind as you continue to reflect and practice. Okay, now with the translation again, the master said, good knowing advisors, if you wish to cultivate, you may do so at home. You need not be in a monastery. If you live at home and practice, you are like the person of the East, whose mind is good. If you dwell in a monastery, but do not cultivate, you are like the person of the West, whose mind is evil. Merely purify your mind, that is the West, of your self-nature. So these are the translations. Now, this passage is an encouragement for lay practitioners to cultivate the path. Lay Buddhists can certainly engage in practice, not only when visiting a temple, but also at home. Many people ask how lay people can practice at home. Even those who have never learned sitting meditation can still practice. Of course, those who have learned meditation can practice too. But the term practice is often misunderstood to refer only to activities like chanting sutras, doing prostration to the Buddha, meditating, reciting the Buddha's name, or chanting mantras. Other daily activities such as eating, sleeping, speaking or walking are not seen as practice. So we may ask you, is observing precepts not a form of practice? Take the first of the 5 precepts, not killing. Is that practicing a precept? Yes. Not lying, is that a form of practice? Yes. In fact, every one of the 5 precepts is a form of practice. That is to say, not killing, not stealing, not engaging in sexual misconduct, not lying, and not drinking alcohol. These are all acts of practice. So there was once a lay person who said, having a good heart or good mind is more important than being vegetarian. Having a good mind is more important than not drinking alcohol. Having a good mind is more important than not lying. Well, in other words, he claimed that his heart was good, his mind was good, yet he lied, drank alcohol, cursed others, and ate meat. He did everything and still insisted that his mind was good. This kind of statement sounds plausible, but is in fact misleading. What he meant by a good mind is entirely unclear. Well, there was a person who taught meditation and even called himself a Zen master. Not only had he not taken even one of the 5 precepts, he also frequently visited brothels. Well, in Japanese, brothels, well, just referring to, uh, they also call it sleeping lotus abode. So they are fond of giving elegant names to things. Alcohol is called prajna soup, and a brothel is called the sleeping lotus abode, as if the lotus were sleeping. So that's where he often went to visit the sleeping lotus abode and drank prajna soup. And when he ate meat, he called it liberating sentient beings. He said sentient beings are so pitiful. If I don't eat them, they won't be liberated. So, according to him, since he had a good mind, when he ate the flesh of sentient beings, it becomes part of his body. Thus, the sentient beings was reborn into the body of a Zen master. So, for example, an animal like a pig or sheep, once consumed, could be transformed into the Zen master's body, thereby being liberated. So it's quite a poetic name, liberating sentient beings. So even stealing from others had a beautiful name, inexhaustible treasury. When he took things from others, he said it was because they were stingy. By taking their possessions and putting them to better use, he claimed he was actually helping them save or manage their wealth. In his view, forcibly taking others' belongings was a form of assistance, a way of helping them with their savings. So, such a person completely reverses right and wrong, black and white, dressing up sinful and evil deeds with pleasant and lofty sounding names. Therefore, we cannot say that such a person has a good mind. A truly good mind must be a compassionate one, and compassion must be expressed through conduct. A compassionate mind is pure and undefiled. It does not contain greed or hatred. If there is still greed involved, whether greed for food, lust, fame, or profit, then the mental activity driven by that greed cannot be called a good mind. So practitioners should not be misled into thinking that just having a good mind is enough. That's unreliable. What does good mind even mean? If someone says it's a heart that doesn't intend to harm others, on the surface, that seems okay. But if the inner mind is still full of greed, that is not a good mind. Ordinary people often think that only anger and hatred are signs of a bad heart. But some people even believe that their hateful anger is righteous. That shows they have not engaged in genuine practice. They don't understand what a good or bad mind truly is. A genuinely good mind is one that is compassionate, generous, committed to the precepts, and devoted to cultivating wisdom. That is a good mind. If one does not understand what a good mind really is, it is impossible to truly experience or manifest one. The best approach is to give rise to a sense of humility and remorse. This means regularly examine and reflecting on oneself. How much have I done wrong toward others and myself? How much have I done right? What should I have done well but failed to do? What should have what should I have avoided but did instead? All of these require honest self-examination. After such reflections, when one sincerely acknowledges one's own faults, that is called a mind of humility, a mind of remorse. And having that is already the mark of a good mind. Not recently, there's a story that's shared again by our teacher. So a layperson kindly donated several bags of rice to our kitchen. It was newly harvested rice, but it wasn't fully processed. Many grains still had husks. His intention was good. He saw that we eat brown rice, so he thought this kind of rice would be suitable. But because the rice wasn't cleaned properly, our kitchen staff had to spend a lot of time removing husks and unprocessed grains. Now, from the donor's point of view, this was good, nutritious rice. But for those of us cooking, it became a problem. So whether something is seen as good or bad depends on the situation and the person's role. The same applies to our own minds. When we don't reflect or practice, we may think, I have a good heart, I have a good mind. But once we truly begin to examine our mind, we might realize it's not so good after all. In fact, recognizing that your mind is not pure, that is the beginning of a true good mind. Like picking husks out of rice, we must recognize and remove impurities from our minds. Only then does the rice, our mind, become pure. When we say practice means cultivating the mind, it means that if our mind is good, our actions will also be good. It is not possible to have a good mind and still behave badly. If someone acts improperly but claims they are still a good person, that is deceiving themselves and others. We should often reflect, after doing something, did it help or harm others? Even if the outcome helped someone, we still need to ask, was our intention selfish? If it was, then even if others benefited, it was not truly a good act. That was their good karma, not your merit. If someone gains from your selfish action, you should feel ashamed, not proud. Everyone is an ordinary person. We all have greed and anger at times. We all have unwholesome thoughts. Even if others don't know what we are thinking, we know. If we can recognize these thoughts, reflect and feel sorry, then we are already cultivating a good mind. This kind of honest reflections is the good mind we are talking about. In the Platform Sutra, it speaks of an even higher level of good mind, which comes after enlightenment. At that point, the person no longer give rise to thoughts of greed, hatred, ignorance, pride, or doubt. The mind is completely free of defilement and filled with wisdom. That is the purest and most complete form of good mind. For us who have not yet awakened, the best good mind is one that feels sorry, feeling humble. So you may remember this well. Whether you are a layperson or a monastic, no matter where you live, you can give rise to the mind of feeling sorry. Don't fall into the mistaken view that says, my mind is better than that of monks and nuns. Some people think just because someone lives in a temple, their mind must be worse than someone living at home. This is upside down thinking. And certain time we may even heard someone say, vegetarians have bad mind, and the person who eats meat has a better mind than them. So he may even say that even though I'm a lay person, my mind is just as good as yours. So first he says it's almost the same, then exactly the same. And if we ask him how monastics are worse, he couldn't give a real answer. He just said, monks are greedy for money, and when they don't get it, they get angry. So it felt like he was directly accusing us too. So if that were true, then the monastics shouldn't be monks. But our monastic life is very simple and frugal. Each month, we spend only a few, well, our stipend here is just 100 US dollars for the stipend. And at the monastery, we spend money on food. Well, mostly because we have to host lay people. And in the Dharma events, we buy more food. So for monastics, we really don't have personal money. Any donation we receive used for spreading the Dharma, for charity, or to cover up basic needs like we pay for electricity bill, water, for gas, for phone lines, and for building maintenance. And the temple or our retreat place doesn't belong to any individuals. It belongs to the community. We cannot sell it for personal gain. And this is very different from lay life. Lay people have personal wealth, families, and careers. We have none of that. Well, you might say that our teacher have disciples, but they're not his property. And he cannot control or own his disciples. The so-called teacher-student relationships is based on mutual effort and support, not possessions. It is not like workers in the factory who belongs to a boss. The people in a monastery are more like students in a school. We help train them to become good Dharma practitioners and serve society, not for our own benefit. So please don't say lay people have better mind than monastics. Monastics don't focus on their own future status or wealth. We cultivate ourselves in order to benefit others. And that's a different path from lay life. And it deserves understanding, not judgment. So I will stop here at this moment.
Báo